I broke it.
This is so much harder than I thought it was gonna be. Hey, I'm Kate, and if you don't know me, I have a beauty channel that I'll link on the screen above called State of Kate, but this is my personal channel, and today I'm gonna share everything about my process of freezing my embryos with my partner, John. Couple quick caveats, disclaimers, etc. I have quite a few medical conditions. So I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is type 3. I have POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. I have dysautonomia. It's suspected that I have SIBO, or small intestine bacterial overgrowth, plus a bunch of other little subcategories that are related, like spinal stenosis, arthritis, joint degeneration, herniated discs, and more. And the reason I say that is because if you are a normal, able-bodied person looking for some vlogs about embryo freezing, this video might be a little bit intense for you. It might be a little bit traumatic, but for those of you with chronic illness who are potentially looking into freezing your eggs or freezing your embryos, you will understand that any change in your hormone levels, any change in your diet, in your routine, in your stress levels will greatly affect your experience with your chronic illness and can send you into a flare-up. So I filmed the entire process of freezing my embryos, starting with the research and understanding what the hell you're supposed to do with mixing all of the medication and the injections, through to filming every single injection that we did, all the way through to hearing the results from my doctor. I'm not gonna lie to you, I had a really tough experience with this. I ended up having to be bedridden for 16 days with the most severe nausea I've ever experienced. Looking back, there are a lot of things I could have done differently. So first, let's get into the vlog, and then you can skip ahead to the tip section in the end. I'll leave timestamps below so that you can skip ahead to the appropriate sections you wanna watch, and I'll leave the advice and tips in the end. So let's get started with the vlog. Okay, so I'm on the toilet right now. Not like actually, I'm just sitting on the toilet. And today's the second day of doing my ovulation kits. You basically check your ovulation for about 5 days. And once you get a positive ovulation result, meaning that you have high or like peak fertility, 5 days later, you come into your fertility clinic and schedule your baseline ultrasound and blood work. So this is the second day that I've been doing my ovulation kits, and I just got a positive result, which is a day earlier than we expected in my cycle. Basically what happens, you pee on a stick, and one of these symbols will come up. Either it'll be a blank circle, which means that you have a low chance of getting pregnant, or you have a smiley face that's a high or peak chance of fertility. Okay, tonight is night 1 of injections for our embryo freezing process. We've got Gonal F and Menopur injections starting tonight, so I'll have 2 injections. Today I had my baseline ultrasound and blood work, which basically means they shove a probe up your vag, look around, see how many follicles you have. I had, I think, 9 on the left, 7 on the right. And then they do your blood work to check your hormones, just to see what your body's naturally at before they start introducing the injections, and, you know, to see how your body kind of performs over time. So we're gonna start it, and John's gonna kind of like walk us through a little bit of what everything is. Luckily, I'm not too nervous. I thought I'd be freaking out, but I'm not, because John was a medic in the Special Forces, and you know, he's treated
I broke it.
Oh my God. I was like, that's a $1,000 pen.
Let's see how it goes.
Anyways, John has treated casualties on the battlefield under fire, so I feel like a little shot is gonna be no problem for him. Okay, we are setting up the medication. Jonathan, what are we injecting tonight? Dr. Reed?
Gonal F and Menopur.
So here's what the needle looks like. To me, that looks huge, but John said that this is super tiny. So we'll go with what John says. Okay, what are we doing?
So the first one is Menopur, and this is the more complicated one. So we've got 275 IUs right here. These have to be reconstituted with sodium chloride or salt water, which is this. And there's 1 vial for both of these. Q-cap is what we're going to use to fill up the syringe and to do the injection for the reconstitution. 3 cc syringe and 27 gauge 1/2 inch needle, very small needle.
Cool. Getting the bubbles out. Now, my fertility clinic didn't suggest this, but every woman I've talked to about their IVF journey or embryo freezing or egg freezing has said, ice your injection site before or after. So I'm just gonna wrap a little ice pack and hope for the best. Doing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So give me 2 fingers from your belly button.
They said at least 2.
Yeah, at least 2. So yeah, I'm gonna go on the third one. So switch it. So I'm gonna go right here.
Yep.
Okay. Want a circular motion? It's not. Let it dry. Done. Good?
Yep.
Sit down if you want.
Fuck you, Potts.
Good job.
I'm fine. It's out of my control. Okay. Alcohol swab. That one stains.
It's gonna get easier.
It's gonna get easier. Day 1 done. High five.
Killer.
That one stings like a bitch.
Yeah, it's good.
Look at it.
Okay, so like I apologize to Ashton Sanders. I'm very sorry because of the bear, but I think also fashion-wise, she really has just like let herself go for it, and I'm very grateful. I will say I feel like there are certain fashion newcomers that have really gotten a lot of attention. I think Tessa Russell is one.
I'm on
that
YouTube?
should get the attention, but I also feel like Ayo Edebiri is not getting the attention that I would like her to get fashion-wise. So
Okay, it's day 4 of hormone injections for embryo freezing. And I'm not feeling so great. I know this setup is not the best, not the most ideal, but like this is the best that I can do today. Here's the thing. I have chronic illness on top of these hormone injections, and I have a cold. So as I'm experiencing these symptoms, these new symptoms for the first time today, I have no idea what's causing it, but I'm pretty confident it's the hormones because my chronic illness and my cold really don't cause nausea and like dizziness. And I was told by my fertility doctors that nausea and dizziness can be a side effect of the hormones. And they did warn me that if I take NyQuil in combination with the hormones, I could be at risk for experiencing additional nausea and dizziness. And I haven't taken NyQuil in 2 days, but I feel like it's just pretty clear that the hormones are causing these symptoms. And I woke up this morning and just felt like so out of it, really tired, just, kind of off, just really wanting to stay in bed all day. No cramps though, no pain, no moodiness, no depression or anything like that. Just feeling like a little like, ugh, not so great. I kind of feel like Dumbledore in Harry Potter when they're trying to find a Horcrux and he's like constantly drinking the poison water, but he doesn't want to because it's causing him pain and but he knows he has to keep doing it. That's how I feel about the injections. Like, I gotta keep doing it. I'm only on day 4 and it's like a 2-week process. So I just gotta channel my inner Dumbledore strength and just pretend that I'm a strong, wise old wizard. And that's gonna get me through.
Three, two, one.
Day 5 of embryo freezing, and I feel about as good as I look, which is fucking horrible. Today, my symptoms are abdominal pain, diarrhea, and so much nausea. I am having trouble eating any food, so my boyfriend John's gonna go pick me up some chicken noodle soup, and I'm just resting in bed. I learned something interesting, which is that the hormones that you're on for the ovarian stimulation is about 19 times stronger than the hormones that you have while you're pregnant. So makes sense why all of these symptoms are something that you would experience in the first trimester. That's just what a few people have told me with their experience. You're doing a great job.
Thanks, Boo Boo. You want me to count down?
Sure.
1, 2, 3.
Oof, ooh. They're bruised immediately.
Oh, it's really good. You alright? You lay down?
Has always been an immigrant's strongest link to home. For over a century, today.
You want to tell everybody what happened?
I got lightheaded.
Okay, so if you struggle with fainting and getting lightheaded like I do, you can get your shots on the ground, and that'll help because it'll increase the blood pressure to your brain, so you'll feel a little bit less lightheaded. Thanks, John.
It's going great.
I'm sitting in the bathroom because I just got really lightheaded, as you saw, and John like pricked me and I started bleeding, and then I got really lightheaded. And then what happens when I have these vasovagal reactions is I get lightheaded, I get kind of clammy, and then I just like cry. And I can't like stop crying. And I don't know why. I get so overwhelmed and I just start crying every time. So I get worried too. I get a lot of anxiety after they happen because it's like traumatizing to my brain every time they happen. So the injections have been going really smoothly. And now all of a sudden I have like somewhat of an episode, and I'm really scared that now it's just gonna be downhill from here and I'm not gonna be able to like continue the injections because of this or something. All in all, I'm just feeling like really frustrated with myself that like I have a hard time pushing through and like being as strong as other people are. I have this thing that I have no control over, and I just don't want it to control me, and it just sucks. So I'm having a little pity party right now, and I'm also hormonal. It's fine. Everything's fine. This is so much harder than I thought it was gonna be. I've had diarrhea for like 4 days. I've been nauseous for 4 days. I can barely get out of bed. Like, I don't know that I've talked to people who've had this kind of reaction to the medicine, and I'm having a little bit of a pity party. And because of all my other conditions, everything's worse, and I have a cold on top of it, so I can't sleep. I feel like I'm drowning in mucus. Fuck, this sucks. I just want to get this over with.
Tonight, let's do menopur first.
I like your style.
Oh, fuck.
Turn the heat up.
Okay, so we just had an issue where my menopur syringe, the needle went in my stomach, and then like 2 seconds in, all the menopur just leaked out of the syringe. And John's given like thousands of injections in his life before. It's never happened to him. I only got like maybe a quarter of my dose. So we called the emergency on-call physician at the fertility clinic. They said that we actually weren't the first people that had this issue this week, and that other people were experiencing menopur leaking out of the syringe, which is like really frustrating because these medications are thousands of dollars. And so if we have to order another vial, that's so expensive and it could be a manufacturing issue. So it's really frustrating. Now I'm going to get only 75 IUs when I'm supposed to get 150 IUs because we think I got maybe about a quarter of the dose. They said honestly that getting a 75 IU dose at this point, like a week into the injections, is totally fine. So just going to breathe through it and know that I can't change it and it's okay and it's all going to be fine. But yeah, I just wanted to call that out and like let you know that that can happen. And if it does, hopefully your fertility clinic has an on-call physician. And yeah, just some ups and downs along the way. Well, it has been an eventful morning. So I haven't updated you or vlogged in a couple days because everything was going really well. My hormones seemed to balance out. They started tapering me off of my gonal F and menopur, so I started feeling a lot better. My nausea went away, my diarrhea went away. I had diarrhea 7 times a day for like a week straight. It was horrible. But I felt really good for 2 days. And then last night I was in the shower and I was washing my hair and I twisted and I felt this sharp stabbing pain, like right where my left ovary would be. And I was a little bit concerned. I called the after hours physician. They said, take some Tylenol, and then if it persists, let us know. There's a risk of ovarian torsion, which is when your ovaries like twist, and that can be really life threatening. But usually that's accompanied by like consistent severe pain, vomiting, diarrhea, like that you're having an emergency. I didn't have any of those sharp pains this morning, and then we had our ultrasound. So we were really excited this morning. We were supposed to have our last ultrasound. So last night was supposed to be on night 10 or night 11 was supposed to be our last injections. And then today I was supposed to do my trigger shot if everything looked good. But unfortunately, my follicles are growing in different groups or cohorts, as they call them. So I have some like bigger ones and then I have some smaller ones. And I have more of the smaller ones. So unfortunately, they've decided to let the bigger ones kind of mature and die off. And we're going to grow the smaller ones, which means my egg retrieval was supposed to be on Monday. And now it's looking like it's going to be on Thursday or Friday, which means another week of injections or almost, which is another couple $1,000s of medication. Oh, that fucking sucks. And, it means another week here in this house, away from our home where we're staying with John's family here because we live in a very remote location that doesn't have a fertility clinic. So, another week away from home and on these meds and doing the injections. But I tell you, it has just been a stressful day. Yeah, this is a lot harder, I think, with EDS. I don't want any regular, normal, able-bodied people to see this and think that this is going to be their experience with an embryo freezing process. But here's my tummy. If you want to see, it's really not bad. And, we've got a little bit of a bruise there, some bruised injection marks. But overall, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, and I'm starting to get used to the injections. So I'm going to pick myself up and rest today, and then tomorrow's a new day. Super pumped. Just found out that my follicles are good to go. We can do our trigger shot tonight, which means that I'll be able to have my retrieval in 2 days. We were thinking about maybe it was going to be another week, but I get to finish my injections tonight and I'm so happy. So what are we doing tonight, Dr. John?
Doing the trigger shots tonight. Yay! My baby. You did a good job, baby. No, you too. We did. Well, yeah, most of it.
Today's the day. Let's do it. Hello, the egg retrieval was done a few hours ago. just been resting, having some snacks, having some coconut water. They got 16 eggs and 15 of them were mature. And so they discarded one of them. So that's really good. I think 15 is a pretty nice yield number. I'll keep you guys updated over the next few days as we find out a couple more of the reports. And then in a few weeks, we'll find out the results of the genetic tests and then how many embryos we got out of the whole process. So fingers crossed, and I'll check in if any of my side effects change. But so far, you know, I had a lot of cramping, a little bit of discomfort today, but the meds that they gave me totally took it away. I think in the IV, they do give you a pretty strong dose of an NSAID, which is why you're not allowed to take Advil on the day of the procedure, but then you can alternate that with Tylenol. And I also got some hydrocodone that they prescribed, but I don't think I'm going to need that because it seems like the Advil and the Tylenol works well enough. One of the things that really changed my experience is with the IV, they give you Zofran, which is an anti-nausea medication. And I literally feel the best I've felt in 15 days because my nausea throughout all the hormone injections has been completely crippling. And now I'm like, this is great. I feel wonderful. I don't have nausea anymore. So I think if the nausea comes back tomorrow, I'm going to try to get a prescription for Zofran because that really was the side effect that was pretty debilitating. Other than that, I just have a heating pad on. I'm gonna rest, you know, have lots of electrolytes and good foods, and I'll check back in when I need to. Well, we just got the news of our embryo report, and out of the 14 fertilized eggs, we only have 2 embryos. I guess a normal cycle usually produces 3, 4, or even 6, but we only got 2. And they say that you want to have 2 embryos per kid that you want to have. So since we want 2 kids, it means that we have to do another cycle of this. And I just don't know if I can take it after how brutal this has been on me physically. And the 2 embryos that we have haven't even made it to the genetic test stage. And they say that around my age of almost 33, you have about a 65% chance of your embryos surviving the genetic tests. So, like, we have a 65% chance that those 2 embryos even finish it at this point. I'm going to try to stay positive. I'm going to try to tell myself that, you know, we have 2 and that's better than none. A lot of people get none, but a lot of people also get a lot more than this. So honestly, if I had had a different experience with this whole process, I wouldn't be as opposed to doing it again. But I was bedridden for over 16 days, you know, like I can't pause my life like that. Anyways, this is just the reality, you know, it's all a gamble. You have no idea what your results are going to be after you go through all of this painful effort and all of the costs associated with fertility treatments. But, you know, hopefully the 2 little guys make it, and at least, you know, hopefully we'll have 2. So I'll check back in once we get the results of our genetic test. Yay! We got it.
Dear God.
We got 2.
Good job, babe.
We got 2.
Good job, babe.
Love you.
Oh, that was scary.
That was so scary. Oh, Jesus. We're saying a boy and a girl. Ah. Are they freaking out?
No, I'm so just like, thank God that like went through.
Okay, we just got the call from the geneticist. Our 2 embryos survived the genetic testing and they're all normal and they are a boy and a girl. So
It was worth it.
it was worth it. We did it. That was a lot. It was a lot when I was going through it, and it's a lot watching it back too. So now that you've seen what my emotional and physical experience was like, I'm going to tell you all about the things I wish I had done differently, the things I wish I had known, just so that you can have a better experience for yourself. So the first tip I have is to ice your injection sites. I really felt like icing with an ice pack for a couple minutes made a bigger difference in the pain, just in the general soreness around the injection site. And it also seemed to make the area bleed less when I was icing missing it. So I would always make sure to grab an ice pack while John was mixing up the medicine, and then it just seemed to be a lot better that way. Strangely, I actually ended up having a pretty good experience with the injection sites. I was really lucky. I didn't have bad bruising, probably because John was a medic in the Army Special Forces for 10 years, and so he can do injections with his eyes closed, no problem. The only thing that happened that I showed in the vlog was I did get a hematoma when I think he probably accidentally pricked a blood vessel, and that gave me a bruise for about a month, but it was really no big deal. Next, if you have POTS like I have, or if you have any kind of fainting condition, or if you get really nervous around needles, or you just tend to have vasovagal reactions, the best thing that you can do is to lay down and have somebody else do the injection for you. If you can't find somebody else to do the injections for you, then just lay down and do it yourself. It helps promote more blood flow to the brain. What happens for me that you saw in the vlog is if I get anxiety about the injections, like it happened when I had the first injection because I was so nervous, it happened when I got the hematoma, I started feeling faint. Any kind of like anxiousness around a medical procedure makes me immediately start feeling faint, and sometimes I pass out. And what happens is in that situation with a vasovagal reaction, all of the blood drains from my upper body down to my lower body. And so if you lie down, and especially if you lift your legs up, that will encourage more blood flow to your brain. So at any point, if you start feeling faint, lay down, take deep breaths, and make sure to elevate your legs. And that's really going to help you and prevent you from feeling faint. Also, huge tip, if you have POTS or you struggle with feeling faint or dizzy or lightheaded, take salt pills. I can't remember what my favorite one is called, but I will put a picture on the screen here. And because of my POTS, I have to take like 2,000 milligrams of salt supplements a day. And that increases my blood volume because I have chronically low blood pressure. So even if you don't have POTS, but you're the kind of person who feels faint around needles, electrolyte supplements and lots of water can really help. Okay, next, the hardest part of the whole thing for me was probably not being able to smoke weed for 3 months before the embryo freezing process. You know, for me, we basically cut out alcohol almost entirely during the 3 months beforehand. That wasn't really a big deal to me. Super easy to cut out alcohol. I barely drink anymore. But cutting out weed was so, so horrible because weed is something that really helps me manage my chronic illness symptoms. It helps me manage my chronic insomnia that's associated with EDS. It generally makes me feel really happy, puts me in a good mood. It's changed my life. Ever since I started smoking weed, I've just had a happier, better life, better sleep. Everything is improved. Like, it's just so important to my daily routine. So you're not allowed to smoke weed or have any kind of cannabis products for the 3 months before your embryo freezing. And of course, during the process as well. My doctor told me they don't have a ton of research about it, but it looks like any kind of marijuana or cannabis product can negatively impact the quality of the eggs and the quality of sperm. So you just want to make sure to abstain. And that includes like topical CBD lotions, CBD oil, all of it. No cannabis products. And that was definitely the hardest part for me. Another really hard part is that you're not allowed to take any hot baths or hot tubs during your experience. And you pretty much should start doing that the 3 months before and during the process of freezing your eggs. We kept taking hot tubs, I think, until about 3 weeks before. And because we didn't end up getting as many embryos as we wanted to, next time we go through the process, I think we're going to do it right at the end of summertime so that we won't even want to be taking hot tubs or hot baths anyways. It sucks because looking back, I feel like there were things that were in my control that maybe I could have done to produce, better quality embryos. And, maybe taking more hot tubs and more hot baths was the reason why we only got 2 embryos. Or maybe my diet was the reason. Or maybe because we partied really hard on New Year's Eve and then the next week went into embryo freezing, maybe that's why we only got 2 embryos. So knowing what I know now, that it is not guaranteed that you're going to get a ton of embryos out of it or a ton of eggs, I would have been on like a massive overhaul of my lifestyle. And I was already eating somewhat clean, probably like 70-30 clean eating to, indulgent foods. But since then, I've gone fully paleo and I have almost entirely cut out alcohol and I feel so much better. So if I feel better, I feel like my embryos would be better too. I think that when you're going through something that is so goddamn expensive and so taxing on your body body and your soul, you want to give it everything you've got and reduce, the chance of you having to go through multiple rounds. So no hot tubs and no hot baths was definitely a tough one. And that goes for men as well. If you are freezing your embryos, make sure that whoever is giving your sperm sample is not taking hot baths and hot tubs either, because that can reduce their sperm count. Okay, the next thing I want you to be aware of is just the horrific side effects that you can have. And obviously you saw it in the vlog. I talked all about it. I was entirely unprepared for how bad the side effects were going to be. The nausea and the diarrhea were just relentless. Like I was having diarrhea like 8 times a day, and so I couldn't leave the house. Like I couldn't trust that I wasn't gonna shit my pants. Like it was bad. And honestly though, I would take the diarrhea over the nausea any day. The nausea was so bad. If I were standing or walking, it was horrendous. Like I just thought I was instantly gonna puke. If I was in bed, especially if I was horizontal or on my side, I felt okay. So to get through that whole whatever it was, 16 days, 18 days of symptoms, I basically was just in the fetal position in bed for over 2 weeks. Be prepared for anything. Be prepared to have to take time off. Be prepared to not be able to show up for work. Really try to develop a strong support system around you, just in case things go a little bit south like they did for me. I've talked to a lot of people, and some people don't have any bad symptoms at all, and they live a totally normal life, and then they have the procedure and they're okay. The next piece of advice that your doctor will tell you that I just want to emphasize is to really take it easy. So, no high intensity interval training, no running, no jumping, no crunches. That was something they didn't put in the little pamphlet. You can't do anything where your ovaries could basically like jump and then like twist over themselves. And what can happen is an ovarian torsion, which is both life-threatening and extraordinarily painful. So just so you know, going into it, once you start the injections, day 1, all the way through to a week after your procedure, so we're talking like basically a month total, no intense exercise. So in conclusion on that one, just take it easy. Okay, my next tip is to understand that every clinic does things differently. So when I was talking to a lot of Instagram followers, it was really funny. Some people were going through the process at the exact same time. So we had the exact same injections. We started on the same day, and we were like DMing each other back and forth what was going on with our bodies and how we were feeling. And what was really interesting is, I was given different meds than one of my followers was. We had different instructions for different things. And, just keep in mind that if you're watching vloggers like me, if you're watching YouTubers, if you're talking with people, just make sure to follow what your doctor is saying, because everyone's given a different protocol. Okay, my next tip is understand that this may go significantly longer than expected. So your doctor is going to give you a calendar, and they're going to put every day on that calendar what injections you're supposed to give yourself, and then they will drop in a window of, when your estimated trigger shot will be. And the trigger shot is the thing that basically tells your body to start dropping them eggs, and then they'll give you a window of when your estimated retrieval will be. Basically, you just have to be both mentally and financially prepared that you may need to continue the injections for longer than it was previously estimated. For example, I think I ended up having to do 3 or 4 extra days of injections, which costed me a little over $1,000 for the extra medication. So we were already looking at $25,000 for freezing the embryos, and then that brought us, I think, to 26 or something like that. So that was devastating when that happened, because at that point I had been bedridden for 2 weeks. I was exhausted. I was in so much discomfort. And then adding 3 or 4 more days of injections. And at that point, my stomach was getting really bruised and we were running out of injection sites. And then you have another $1,000. It just kind of started feeling really overwhelming. And so just go into it knowing those estimations are just that. They're just estimations. Next, I just wanted to touch on diet. So, I don't want to talk a lot about it because I think everyone has a different perspective on, food and eating and what's right for your body. So for me, what sucked was that during the whole process, all I could eat was crackers and chicken noodle soup. Like all my normal foods that I love, spinach, chicken, oatmeal, fruit, vegetables, all the healthy shit, my body was like, don't want it. So I was really bummed about that because I really wanted to give those embryos the most nutrients that they could have. And, I also understand that embryos aren't just made in those 2 weeks you have injections. They start the process weeks and weeks before that, or I guess 3 months before, I'm not really sure. So I was bummed. I really wanted to have a cleaner diet. And so for the next round that we do, I'm going to be more prepared in terms of dealing with the nausea and diarrhea, and also just making sure that the 3 months before, next time I would really understand the weight of what's going on. And I would understand that everything you put in your body affects the quality of the embryos. Like we partied super hard on New Year's Eve and we had a fucking blast. We had so much fun. And then I think we started the injections like 4 days later. It was so dumb. Like, don't be an idiot like me and rip a bunch of shots on New Year's Eve right before you freeze your eggs. They do tell you that you're only allowed to have a 2-drink max while you're on the injections. I didn't drink at all just because, I was so sick. And also I just, don't really drink on a regular basis anymore, but learn from my mistake and, don't have any big parties during those 3 months beforehand. Okay. Next tip. So important. Check your meds. Our pharmacy forgot to include 2 extremely important needles. We didn't find out until 2 hours before I was supposed to get the injection. So John, I forget what did he do? Oh yeah, John had to drive back to the fertility clinic to go get the needles before they closed at like 7 p.m. And if we had waited until I think the 8 p.m. when we were supposed to do the injections or whatever time it was, we would have been screwed because the fertility clinic would have closed and the pharmacy would have closed. And then we would have missed our injections. And it's possible that the entire process would have had to start over. So when you get your deliveries from the pharmacy, all the medication that has to go in the fridge, your sharps container, which is the disposal for the needles, and all the medication and the alcohol prep pads, including all of the syringes you're supposed to use, create an inventory for yourself and just cross that off, cross-reference it. And if you have any questions, call your fertility clinic and make sure, don't do what we did and not make an inventory and then realize at the last second that you didn't have the appropriate syringes. My next tip is to advocate for yourself. My doctor, frankly, I really didn't like her. I still don't like her. And I don't know that I want to continue with her. So really, I think if you can, try to find a doctor who, really matches the kind of style that you appreciate in a provider. She ended up getting the job done. When I told my fertility doctor, hey, like I've been bedridden for a week. I'm so sick. I have such bad diarrhea. She was like, okay, well, we can give you this medication. It's supposed to reduce the side effects of the injections. There's no data that shows that it negatively interacts with the hormones, but we don't really know. So I was like, oh, well, I don't really want to take anything that might, harm the process. So I just decided to have a stiff upper lip and fight through it and, just take it easy in bed and work when I can. Next time though, I do know that there are certain things you can do to help. For example, I think you can take Zofran, which is a prescription they put you on, I believe, during your egg retrieval. I think they give you a dose of Zofran and it can cause constipation. So just heads up on that. And I also recently purchased C-bands from Amazon, where basically it's kind of like an acupuncture pressure point that's supposed to help with nausea. And I took it one step further and there's around a $279 product called the Relief Band. And basically you apply a conductive gel to your wrist, you apply the bracelet, and essentially it just sends pulses to this particular nerve in your wrist that then sends a signal up to your brain, which is the nausea center in your brain, which then kind of tells your vagus nerve, I forget what it's called, but basically it just helps control the nausea. And so there are a few different things that you can do also to help with the nausea, like ginger tablets. None of that works for me. So I'm now going to try the C-bands and the relief bracelet. I get super nauseous and faint when I fly. And if they work, then I feel like they could probably really work with the side effects from the injections as well. So if I could do it again, I would advocate harder. I would say, hey, do you know anything that I can take, whether it's a prescription, something over the counter, and anything possible to help with this nausea and diarrhea? I would have advocated much harder for myself because this ended up being such a horrific experience because I was so sick for so long and I didn't feel like my doctor was really taking me seriously. She did say that you're really not supposed to have any side effects from the injections. She said it is incredibly rare for patients to get nausea and diarrhea. So she kept telling me the whole time she thought that I had a stomach bug, but I mean, I'm 33. I've had plenty of stomach bugs. I've had food poisoning before. This was not that. You know, stomach bugs for me last for like 48 hours. This was 16 days and my symptoms exactly correlated with my injections. So you really can't convince me that it was a stomach bug. And it kind of pissed me off that she wasn't listening to me. And that's where EDS and chronic illness comes into play here, where you feel like you're getting gaslit by doctors a little bit who are telling you your body is going through one thing and you just innately know that that's not happening. And that was my experience. I mean, who knows? Maybe she's right. Maybe they weren't side effects. You know, maybe I did have a really prolonged stomach bug or something like that, but I just know my body better than she does. And I just feel like it was side effects from the injections. Next, take colace, which is a stool softener, the day before your procedure. And for me, I did it the day before, just like instructed. I think I would have tried to start it a couple days prior if they would give me permission. I was constipated for 5 days and oh boy, it was uncomfortable. Like when you're, is there anything worse than like when you're constipated and you're so full but you're hungry and you're like there's no place for this food to go, like there's nowhere it can go. That's how I felt for 5 days and I hated it. So if your doctor doesn't mention colace stool softener, I think it's 100 milligrams. I would have to check my reports, but basically, you know, take colace about 3 times a day, soften that stool on up, and then you'll have a better experience post-procedure, because anesthesia can really cause a lot of constipation. You're already going to experience bloating after the retrieval because, you know, your stomach fills with ovarian fluid, and it's normal to have a little bit of OHSS, which is ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. But if you aren't properly hydrated, your body can actually start leaking out the ovarian fluid, and then it starts getting to be a little bit dangerous. So you're already going to be experiencing bloating from the procedure. You definitely don't want to experience constipation on top of it. Okay, next is more of an emotional and financial one, and it sucks. Be prepared to do multiple rounds. John and I went into this thing like, you know, at the time I was 32, we did this a month ago, and he's 37, and we were like, okay, you know, we're in our 30s. It's an okay time to do this. We're somewhat healthy. You know, in the initial consultations, we saw everything looked good with my follicle count. Everything looked good with his sperm count. So we were like, okay, we're golden. We could probably get a bunch of embryos out of this. You know, the devastation that we experienced that you saw in the vlog of only getting 2 embryos and having, I think we had 10 or 12 embryos get discarded on day 6 after the procedure. It was devastating to have gone through, you know, a $26,000 process and to find out you only have 2 embryos. We had no idea that could even happen. Like, we knew conceptually it could happen, but we just didn't think it would happen to us. We just didn't think there was a reason to, you know. They were like, everything looks good with the follicles, with the sperm, like should be fine. I'm not a low producer, so it looked like everything would be smooth, and just things happened, you know. They really couldn't tell us an answer. They did say sometimes it's because of the lab, sometimes the lab makes mistakes. They said sometimes it's because of the quality of the eggs. She said sometimes it's actually an issue with the sperm. So we have no way of knowing why at day 6 all of our embryos just like started getting discarded or started dying, or they like matured too fast or didn't mature fast enough. So we're thankful that we have those 2 embryos, a boy and a girl, but you know, it was really devastating to find out that we have to go through this again. Ooh, I'm getting emotional. Yeah, I just like, it wasn't like mentally prepared that it would end up having to be like over $50,000. And I know it's the right thing for our future. I'm 33 now. I'm not ready to have kids. I need to figure out my health with EDS. I need to get better so that I can be a good mom, you know, be ready for it emotionally and physically once I do have kids. I have things I want to accomplish first before having children. I know that this is the right move for me, but I think the devastation of like, you know, only having the 2, knowing like my experience, what I went through with the side effects, just how hard it was on my body physically, nothing really prepared me for only getting 2 embryos out of it. And at the same time, I know I'm really lucky. Some people get none, but I didn't realize that, you know, like, I don't know. I didn't realize that I was at risk for potentially having this whole thing be a failure. Okay, so the next part is supplements. My doctor put me on prenatal vitamins and a CoQ10 antioxidant 3 months before the egg retrieval. I think if I were to do anything differently, I would have really followed the proper dosage for both. I think I took like one CoQ10 supplement a day and one prenatal vitamin a day. And on the package, it says you can take like up to 3. I would definitely take the max dose. There is some data if you look online, and also what my doctor shared with me, that CoQ10 can greatly improve the quality of your eggs. So definitely get that bad boy in your system, and talk to your doctor about anything else that might be specifically helpful for you and your body. The last thing I want to mention, if you are doing embryos and not just eggs, make sure that your partner or whoever is submitting your sperm sample is also following some lifestyle changes to make sure that the quality of the sperm is in tip-top shape. John and I talked after the final report, and the next round that we're going to do, we're really going to change our lifestyle. And John is now on keto. I'm on paleo. We drink maybe twice a month, like max, if that. So we mainly now just stick to a diet of meat, fruits, vegetables, eggs, lean proteins, nuts and seeds, healthy fats, and that's it. And, I cut out a lot of the things like pastas I was eating and more indulgent foods, and I feel so much better. And for the next round, I'm definitely going to stick with this plan and just make sure that I get the best quality embryos possible, because God knows you're paying for it. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to say before I like totally lose my light here is John's sister had like a totally easy time during her egg retrieval. She had almost no side effects during the entire process. She only had a little bit of moodiness and a little bit of like bloating and cramping after the procedure, and that's it. So I don't want to scare any of you. It's totally possible to have a really easy time. I just felt compelled to share my journey, especially for people with chronic illness, because I think, when your body is so sensitive, these little changes can make a big impact. So I really don't want to scare any of you off from doing it. I'm really glad that I went through with it. I'm so happy that we have 2 embryos that we could use, and hopefully we'll get at least 2 more the next round. They do say that you want to have 2 embryos per kid, and since John and I want 2 kids, we ultimately want at least 4 embryos on hand. So I'm really glad I did it for myself. I really hope I didn't scare you off too much. Just know that everyone's experiences are completely unique to them. Everyone's different, and it's totally possible that some of the issues I had are something you won't even experience at all. And just in case some of you ask about pricing, the storage fee for embryo freezing is $700 a year. The injectable medications were around, I think, $6,500, and the rest of the costs were for the fertility clinic. So we ended up paying in total around $26,000, and then we'll pay $700 a year until we want to use our embryos. And lastly, if you want to know why I decided to freeze my embryos, I will leave a link on the screen above to an Instagram highlight where I answered all of those questions about why I wanted to do it sooner rather than later, and why I felt like it was the right thing for me, and why I chose embryos over eggs. So definitely check out that Instagram highlight on my State of Kate page. Please leave any questions below. I'll totally answer anything that you want. I want to help as many people as possible. And lastly, if you want to know more about me, I'll leave a video on the screen above. That's my chronic illness journey, all about, the symptoms that I've had throughout my life, how I ended up getting a diagnosis, because if you've clicked on this video, you might have a similar story, and that video might feel like a safe space for you, because it talks a lot about the emotional impact of having these conditions while looking able-bodied. So check out that video if you're interested, and I'm wishing you all of my luck and love on your fertility journey, sending you all lots of love, and I hope you have a great day.